Good morning. This is like weird. It's early. I'm on early. Sorry, y'all. I was like hoping it would let me set this up a little better, but we'll work from here. I know it's a few minutes. Oh, it is right at 9 o'clock. Yay. Let me put a little, the way my mom will be happy. Hi, y'all. I'm Stacy. This is Walking in My Shoes, and we are loving my veteran this morning. I'm not quite sure how all this comment stuff works, so we'll figure it out as we go. Let me get a little bit of coffee in here. Today's topic, actually all week's topic, is to communicate. But we have so much. Good morning, Melissa. We have so much going on, so let me just kind of tell y'all where we are. Melissa did an incredible Sunday check-in. We do that on our Facebook group. I just want you to know, Melissa, it was heartfelt and I needed it. So thank you very much for that. Today, everybody get excited, do our thing. Shane and Stephanie are at Shepherd's. We're super excited about that for them. Blessings to them. And I think, what else do we got going on? We have so much going on this week. We always do. Wednesday, Stephanie does our Wellness Wednesdays. Thursday, we do Let's Talk. And there's a lot more coming out as we go. All right. So today's topic is what we have here is a failure to communicate. Communication is key to this. Communication is vitally important to being able to have an effective relationship. And that is not just with your veteran, that's with anybody. Communication. And we were talking about this the other day. I know Carl and I have talked about this multiple times. Y'all, I was born and raised in the South, okay? Tea only comes over ice. You don't get it any other way. That's the way tea comes in the South, is over ice, lots of sugar. So I think about a story my mom told me a long time ago. She said when she went to upstate New York, they were at Saratoga Springs at the racetrack, and she wanted a glass of sweet tea, iced tea, sweet tea, what us Southern people call sweet tea. What did they bring her? Good morning, Jen. They brought her a cup of hot water, the tea bag, and a cup of ice. And I'm like, oh. So she literally had to make her own tea. Good morning, y'all. So all we have to do, and it's critical that we understand this, is that failure to communicate. Up there in Saratoga, obviously, they don't make good old-fashioned iced tea. So it was like talking in two different languages. Another thing that we talked about, I think, on Thursdays is Let's Talk, is Carla is in the North, and this chick is, remember, I'm a Southern chick. Gravy, okay? Gravy is something that we Southern people put over our mashed potatoes and our meat, right? It's got a little bit of flour and it's got some fat up in there, and we make gravy that way. That's how Southern people make gravy. The Jersey boy, it's some red stuff that resembles spaghetti sauce in a bowl. So when I'm talking about what we have here is this failure to communicate, there are days we have to just get on the same piece of music. We talk a different language to each other. So when we do that, we have this very different language that we're speaking. And we do that with our veteran. I know that Carl, this freaks him out, y'all. He got so mad at me over some of this. He says, we're getting ready to go somewhere. He says, well, how far is it? I go, oh, it's right up the road. Again, I'm from the South, and right up the road for us, because I live in the country, could be 5 miles. The little store we have, the convenience store, is right up the road. It is 5.5 miles from our house. His right up the road is like a block, like a regular city block. Okay. It's not Stacy's right up the road. So I found that when we started going places, and he'd say, how far is it? Oh, it's right up the road. Y'all, I had to GPS it to give him a time frame. I'm like, oh, it's 5 or 10 minutes. He says a Southern 5 or 10 minutes is never his concept of 5 or 10 minutes. And in reality, it was probably I don't know, 25, 30 minutes. But to me, it was right up the road, 5, 10 minutes. Let's just run up the road. So that was a big deal for us. In this, what we have here is failure to communicate. So if you're not on the same page, you absolutely cannot have a conversation. You are talking two different languages. Think about when we take Spanish and it's not conversational Spanish. So like a lot of EMTs and paramedics, I know we're all listening to like Rosetta Stone. And so we could speak Spanish to, our patients. Well, that's not conversational Spanish. So while I might be able to pick up a word or two, I can still pick up a word or two from what I already know, but that is not Spanish, right? I mean, it is, but it's the dialect that is different. And we have to learn that when we are communicating with anybody, but specifically with our veterans. Are you speaking clearly? Are you not sugarcoating? Remember, veterans are not a big fan of sugarcoating. All right, veterans, again, are not a big fan of sugarcoating. And this chick, again, raised in the South, we know what pralines are, okay? They're little pecans, and they got all kinds of sugar on them. They're amazing. But veterans don't like things sugarcoated. They want the facts. They want the facts. They don't want the sugarcoat BS. They want to know, we need to go here, today, here, and it's going to take us this long, and they don't want any sugarcoating in between. Well, baby, let's go here because it's such a nice day today. And you'll go through this thing with them, right? Where that's what they're going to say is, and you're like, oh, and there's a really pretty stream on the way, and it's really just so beautiful. And God just looks at me and says, where do you want to go? Oh, I want to go up the road. Okay, then no more. They don't like sugarcoating. So again, when you're speaking, make sure you do that. I know yesterday we were nowhere near on the same sheet of music. I'm not even sure we were playing on music on the same side of the continent. Okay, it was just that different. And it was everything we said to each other was not clear. And yesterday morning, it was like we both were just kind of snippy, especially me. We were kind of snippy and realized that the truth was we were just not communicating well. What we had was a failure to communicate. So had some lunch. It was rainy. Both of us kind of laid down. When we got up, we were fine. The problem is that we failed to communicate with each other. We failed to have a good, meaningful conversation. And sometimes that means, and most of y'all will understand this, sometimes that means they can talk a subject to death, but that's okay as long as they're communicating. And we miss that. We miss that failure to communicate. It is something that we don't do well. And we have to be able to do that well. You have to know that when we're talking about gravy, depending on who you're talking to, what kind of gravy you're going to have and where it's going to go and what its use is. You have to make sure that you and your veteran are on the same piece of paper. And if you're not, walk out of the room for a minute, reset your brain, and walk back in. Or just stop for a minute and reset your brain and try to have this conversation. You're sitting there, you want to go somewhere, both of you need keys, right? Or you'll tell somebody, let's go out and get in the truck. Well, there's 3 trucks outside, so which one do you want me to get in? And you don't communicate. They're like, well, did you get in the truck? Well, which truck do you want me to get in? Do you get in the truck? You have to communicate. And it has to be not just where you think you're articulating well and that you're getting your message across. You need to make sure that they're getting the same message you're sending, that you're speaking the same language. If you don't understand something that is said to you, make sure that you repeat it and comprehend it. Say, look, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I just want to make sure that I'm doing what you want. Is this, I to understand. Am I to understand that you want this, this, and this? Make sure I hear you correctly. Do you want this, this, and this? When you do that, You are communicating, your boundaries are clear, and you're on the same piece of paper. It just works better that way. The other thing I do this all the time in failure to communicate. Yeah, I bounce around like from thing to thing to thing. It is like watching the, I guess, most evenly matched tennis game where they're just hitting the ball back and forth, because I'll do that. I'll be talking about this, and then something else crosses my mind, and then I'll go to here, and then the conversation's kind of over. There's a little lull, and then I'll go here. And I'm not sure that Carl has the map to navigate my train of thought. So when you do that, you could have been discussing something, and it could have been a simple conversation that you were discussing, and you could have been discussing something, and then you take this break, and now you're discussing something else, and they're mixing it all together, and everybody gets confused. Me, them, everybody gets confused, no matter who's. If he does it to me, I get that way. If I do it to him, he gets that way. Everybody does it. We get confused. So we're not having clear conversations. It is our failure to communicate. And it's not just failure to communicate. It needs to be failure to communicate effectively. Always. We don't do that always. We go back to, I can't read his mind. He can't read my mind. My boss couldn't read my mind. My mom can't read my mind. My kids can't read my mind. The only person I think in the whole entire universe that reads my mind well is the dog. Okay, but they don't read minds. So when you only give out part of it and you think you know what you want, or they know what you want at the end, nobody is communicating. And a lot of times, Carl will look at me and say, we're butting heads, we're saying the same thing. But it's this communication that we don't have. And it takes one of us, usually him, to step back and say, we're butting heads, we're saying the same thing. Because we're using a different language. We're using different verbiage. Verbiage makes all the difference in the world. Verbiage makes all the difference in the world. And we have to make sure that we understand and we are approaching things with the right verbiage, or we end up in this horrible failure to communicate situation. Failure to communicate. It is something that we need to learn to do and do it well, is communicate. And we don't always do that. I don't do that. I don't do that with my mom sometimes. I didn't do it when I was a boss sometimes. I didn't set the right expectations. I didn't do that sometimes. And when I didn't do that, it was a big failure to communicate. And no objective got met. So y'all understand? You follow me? I mean, make sure we're all in the same English here. If you follow me, click that little like button. There's a little thumbs up button, I think, somewhere that you can click, and it's kind of cool. I don't know enough about YouTube to be able to master this. But what I'm getting at is we have to communicate. And we have to communicate in the same language. And we have to make sure that we completely understand. Because if we don't, it creates an argument. If it don't, now here we go. I'm really not communicating well. If we don't learn to communicate well, something doesn't get done. Our expectations aren't met. Their expectations aren't met. Somebody's expectations aren't met. And this could be simple expectations. Like, did you put the toilet paper in the bathroom? Well, no. Well, Or did you put the toilet paper in the bathroom? Yep, I put it up in the cabinet. Well, yeah, but we needed a roll by the toilet. Well, you didn't say that. You didn't say that. And so what happens is we failed to communicate, and that creates a problem because then you're all mad because they didn't put the roll of toilet paper next to the toilet or on the little roller, and then the rest of it in the cabinet. You said put the toilet paper in the bathroom. That's where it went. Consider it a victory if it makes it to the tub. Because if you said take it to the bathroom and weren't specific in your wheres it was going, where in the bathroom you wanted it, and it just got put somewhere else, then you can't be uptight because your expectation wasn't met because you didn't communicate. Failure to communicate. And what's going to happen? You're going to go in there and the toilet paper is not going to be where you expect it to be. And then you're going to get yourself all worked up. Then you're going to come say something to the person who's supposed to put it there. And now we have an argument. That's failure to communicate. Failure to be clear. There's a lot of times that Carl and I will discuss things like, what are we going to do with this? Or what are we going to do with that? Or how do you feel about this? And we discuss it. And because we've talked about it, I just have this thing. Okay, well, we've talked about it. And this is kind of what we talked about doing. I'm just going to go do it. I'm just going to handle it. I'm going to do it because we talked about it. And then I'll do something and he'll look at me and say, I'm like, but we talked about it. And he said, yeah, but we didn't agree to move in this path. So failure to communicate. How well are you communicating? When he says, and we talk about it, but we don't have a resolve. We don't have a resolve. Very nice, Colleen. When we don't have a resolve in the way we're communicating, what are we accomplishing?
A headache.
A headache, an argument, hurt feelings. And this is how it starts. When you start this and you fail to communicate at time one, then somebody gets mad, okay? Because you're not on the same page, so you're not syncing, right? So you're not syncing correctly, and nobody's on the same page here, and you're just not quite in the same thing. So we're not doing this, and I have this expectation in my mind, and he has this expectation, and one of us does something that's not meeting that other expectation for a resolution, and then we get mad. We get mad. You know, if I say, well, we need to take this out for dinner, he'll go, okay, thinking about this is what we're going to take out for dinner. If he doesn't take it out, then I get mad, or vice versa. You're like, well, I thought we were taking this out for dinner. Well, yeah, we are, but did you take it out? If you don't communicate, then that starts the beginning of a bad moment. And that bad moment gets into the next because now you're mad about something else because you're still not communicating effectively about what you started to communicate with to begin with, or started to communicate about to begin with. I really can't talk today.
That sounded like a Biden moment.
Thanks, hon.
You're welcome.
Got to have that love and support over there. So where we're going is that communication. Are you speaking the same language? Gravy versus spaghetti sauce, but that's a whole new thing. Gravy versus gravy. Are we talking about that on the same plane, or are we not? And if you're not speaking on the same plane about the same thing, there's so many things that we can screw up. Clean the house. That is one of the greatest ones. It was with my kids and everything. Clean the house. Hey, y'all, today we need to clean the house. Okay, my concept of clean the house when I say that, and I'm not like, hey, y'all, we just need to dust and vacuum and pick up, and I say clean the house. Y'all, I want the baseboards wiped down. I want the windowsills wiped out. I want to clean the house. Well, my kids would get up and, they might dust their room and pick up some stuff and run a vacuum or whatever. And they'd look at me and go, we're done. And can we go somewhere? Wait. Are the floors mopped? Did the bathroom get clean? Did you wipe out your windowsills? And they're like, Mom. And I'm like, I said, we're going to clean the house. We did. We dusted and we vacuumed. That's not what I wanted done. But you didn't communicate it to me. So now I'm mad at the kids, right? Because the kids wanted to go. Now, what happens, the kids are mad at me because they think that they met their expectation by cleaning the house in their expectation. And they're mad at me and I'm mad at them. And before long, there's this blow up and nobody is talking correct on the same page. Most of the time, nobody's talking. Most of the time, there's slammed doors. Most of the time, that's what happened when even something as simple as clean the house. Failure to communicate. That creates the problem. We cannot function in failure to communicate. We have to be able to go further and say, we have this. We have to be able to speak on the same page. We have to be able to do all of these things, because if we're not speaking the same language on the same page, we have a mess. And then you wonder why we don't communicate. And then you wonder why things escalate. And then we wonder why there's yelling. And then we wonder why there's hurtful things. And I'm not blaming anybody that he does it or she does it or this does it or they do it. We all tend to not get on the same piece of paper. Before long, things get whatever our being uptight is, whether it's storming off. I'm a good storming off person. I'm really good when we're not communicating. I'm not really thinking this is like a good praise, but when we're not communicating well and something makes me mad, my answer usually is fine, whatever, or okay, dear. And I get up and I storm off. And it's not like fine or okay. It is fine, whatever, or okay, dear. And I storm out of the room.
And then the door closes and all the other mumblings come out.
Right. And then the door closes and I mumble under my breath. So when we do that, we're not opening ourselves up for communication. I'm already mad. And then what happens? He gets mad because he wants to know, well, what'd you say under your breath? And I could have, I'm this weird multitasking person, and I could be mad at him and say, fine, whatever, and storm out of the room. And then I get on a tangent, mumbling under my breath, not about what we just argued about, but about something totally different. They've decided that they're going to redo the roads, and just like totally that way. And it's under my breath. And then he comes in behind me and is like, what'd you say? And I'm like, nothing. And he's like, I heard words. So what did you just do? How are we communicating like that? We're setting ourselves up to get in an argument. We're setting ourselves up for that. And I'm going to tell you, I am a fighter. I want the last word 100% of the time. I want the last word 100% of the time. See, he's not even arguing over that. I want the last word 100% of the time. If you start to talk to me and I don't like where it's going, I am really quick to throw something else in there to deflect it from me.
That has nothing to do with the argument.
Right. It has nothing to do with the argument. He will forever look at me and say,
stay on point with this.
Can we stay on point with this? And I'm like, but this and this and this. And it may have been 100 things prior to that got me in this situation. But he wants to resolve, and we should, the current situation, because we didn't communicate well. And it comes from not being on the same page. We don't argue over big stuff. We very rarely argue over little stuff. We argue over stupid stuff like who's going to lay on the couch. I mean, that literally, like I said, it was raining yesterday. We went to go take a nap. It was Sunday. It was raining. We're going to go lay down. Well, there's a lot of storms coming, and the oldest dog, Opie, is terrified of storms. So Carl says, because the day before we had a really bad storm and it put a tree limb in where the chickens are. And he says, I'm going to sleep out here in the living room. I'm like, okay, fine. Now we have that, and we have a love seat, the big couch and a love seat. And Opie, the dog, loves the love seat. So I didn't want to get him off of it. So I'm like, okay, fine. And I went in my office where there's no air.
There it is.
I lay down.
Fine.
I said that, right? And we got into this. We were getting into this. And he kind of brings me back down and says, can we get on point? And what's the big deal? And so we weren't communicating at all. At all. Because I just went and laid in my office where I'm comfortable. I like that love seat better. I went and laid in my office. He thought I was mad. Everything just, I'm fine. It just blew up to a place it didn't need to be because we weren't communicating on the same page. And we do this. And then you don't understand why we can't get anything resolved. We don't understand why we're not making it. Why are we not having good conversation? Why is my veteran not doing what I asked? Why is this argument going on? Why is he mad at me? Why is? And we say it all the time, but 90% of the time when you go back and you start looking at it, you will realize it has to do with communication. 90% of it has to do with communication. All the way down from the words you say to your body language, to your tone of voice, every bit of it, your facial expressions. My face, when I get pissed, must like have a neon sign that lights up on it that says, she is pissed. My kids say it's because I grit my teeth, but
That's not it.
I have an I'm pissed look on my face. I mean, there's no hiding it. So that communication, when he says something to me and it pisses me off, and he says, well, you're pissed. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I must be flashing the neon I'm pissed sign off from below it because I'll smile and I go this, no, I'm not. And then what happens is we don't communicate about it. I stay super pissed. It festers. Same thing. That's getting things out and getting it on the same piece of paper. Instead of me saying, no, hon, I'm not fine right now, but it's not a big deal. I need to get over it and work this out. And if I can't, we'll come back and talk. See, we don't do that. We give them this dumb smile that says, I'm fine, right? With this whole cheesy grin. And in the meantime, our head's flashing. She's pissed. That's the way we do it. That's the way it works. And we do this all the time when we fail to communicate. Everything, body language, crossing. Now, I stand a lot with my arms crossed, not being pissed off. I just stand that way. But there's a way that I will fold my arms that he knows that I am guarded, becoming guarded, or I've turned my brain off and I'm not listening to anything else that's being said. We do that. We posture ourselves. And once you cross your arms and posture yourself, especially when those shoulders roll, you might as well be flipping the I'm off switch because they see it. We all do. And the more you're with them, the more they see it. And you're interpreting things based on body language. So communication is key. All the way from verbiage to the tone you use, to being on the same page, to your body language, all of that matters. And if you don't start working on these little things and getting communication clear, you're going to continue these arguments. You're going to continue the disagreements. Do we disagree still? Yes, a lot. Well, not a lot. Sometimes. We still disagree. We still do it. We just don't do it at a level that's up here now. We do it down here where it's supposed to be. And you'll find that most of it comes from not being clear in our questions, answers, expectations. It all plays a role. And if you're failing to communicate, you are failing to doing anything effectively. So you have to have communication. We can talk about setting boundaries till hell freezes over. If you can't communicate those boundaries effectively, what good is setting boundaries? What are you going to put signs that say, don't cross here? Okay. I know for my father, a no trespassing sign meant like if there was a house he wanted to see or whatever, and there was a sign that said no trespassing in this old abandoned house, it said in fine print, except for Lucas Hicks across the bottom, right? So that was like a challenge to him. I know that if Carl would get out at the river, now I won't do it on our truck, but if we get out somewhere and there's a sign that says don't cross,
I will.
He's going to cross because he wants to know why we can't cross it, and it's a personal challenge. So we have to be on that same piece of paper when we communicate. We have to know the whys. It's our body language. It's the verbiage we use. It's the attitude we use coming in. It's the understanding that gravy is gravy in different places, and we have to understand where we are with that. And if you don't, you're never going to be able to set boundaries. You're never going to be able to expand your relationship. You're never going to be able to grow it healthy and happy, because it can grow healthy and happy. And I will tell you this, I don't care what anybody says, healthy, happy relationships people disagree in.
You'd rather have a relationship grow like a beautiful piece of shrubbery, not like a festering zit.
Nice, hon. Piece of shrubbery, not a festering zit. That's Carl's description. But that's what I'm talking
Well,
about.
yeah, if
Failure
it's a
to
zit, eventually it's
communicate.
going to come to a head and pop all over the place.
It will.
That's gross.
And it's gross. And that's what happens. That's what happens when we don't communicate effectively. Tomorrow on what we have here is a failure to communicate is going to be learning tone. Learning tone and ways to approach that don't look like you're attacking. Learning tone and ways to approach where you don't look like you're attacking. And hopefully I'll get a little more qualified and good at this live stream thing, and we'll work on it. I want to thank everybody who came over from Facebook to YouTube to see it live. Appreciate the comments. I'm not even sure I can see all of them. I'm going to learn a little bit more today about this. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Like this video. It's important for all of us that we do that. It kind of gives us some good feedback. Write reviews as well. We'll take positive and negative. Again, it gives us good feedback. If there's a place that you want a conversation about that we're not talking about, write it in the comments so we know we can start adding that. So make sure, again, put this out, share it, like it. This is Stacy. We're loving my veterans. This has been walking in my shoes. I think I need more coffee. Y'all have a blessed day. Bye.
Like the festering zit comment wasn't good.